Welcome, welcome everyone. We're going to get started in just a few seconds. We're just letting folks join the room. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So it looks like we still have some folks trickling in. Give it a minute. Thank you so much for being here. I know our fabulous presenters are very excited to spend this time with you. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Welcome to Better Together, Redesigning Teaching in Middle School to Build Inclusive Classrooms, presented by the wonderful Gwen Bakurin and Mai Cruz. I'm Janelle Mercado, SIP Project Coordinator, your moderator for this incredible session. I have had firsthand experience in working with your two fabulous presenters, and I am just so excited for you to learn from them. A few logistics. This webinar is being recorded and it will be archived on the conference agenda, so you can access it following the session if you miss anything. Closed captioning is available by clicking on the closed captioning button at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Also, the interpretation icon is in that same area. So if you would like to access Spanish translation, you are welcome to access it by clicking on that interpretation icon. And then we have our wonderful ASL interpreters that are spotlit and will be interpreting alongside our presenters. Feel free to interact in this session on either the chat box or in the Q&A. All three of us will be monitoring, so we'll make sure all of your questions get answered. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Gwen and Mai. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon. Thank you, Janelle, for introducing us. It's actually great to see you again. We are so excited that we're here. Welcome to the SIP Inclusion Conference, and welcome to our presentation, Better Together, Redesigning Teaching to Build Inclusive Middle School Classrooms. It has been a learning journey for us, and we hope it was the same thing for all of you as well. Janelle will be sharing a copy of our slides in the chat box. It is also available in the agenda. First and foremost, my name is Mai Cruz. I'm just going to briefly give a little background about myself. I have been in the field of education for almost 17 years now. I started my career as a special day class mild to moderate teacher, and from there held various responsibilities, which included being an RSP teacher, ESY coordinator, program specialist, middle school assistant principal, and special education coordinator. And I will let my partner in crime introduce herself. Take it away, Gwen.
Thank you, Mai, and thank you, Janelle, for that wonderful introduction. We are just so excited to be able to share our amazing journey with all of you guys. I'm Gwen Bakurin. I'm the Special Education Director for Hollister School District. Where we came from is in a small county in San Benito. San Benito County is a small and sparse county with 11 school districts, and Hollister is the biggest school district. We also run the regional program for our students with moderate to severe disabilities, and also our therapeutic program. And I know that we are heading into what we call the afternoon slump. And this is, Mai and I really dreaded this during lunchtime or after lunchtime presentation, because this is time in which our tummies are full or probably not, and our mind started to drift. So we want to check the temperature in this virtual room. Using our dog meter scale, we want to find out how you guys feeling today. Okay, so please use your chat box to tell us, what do you feel and how are you feeling? Are you number one, you feel amazing and you can't wait to get started? 2, you feel blah, and tired and you just want to listen and relax at the same time? 3, are you on it? Like you're ready to fill your mind with wisdom? 4, I'm here, I'm listening, but I'm all on call for whatever reason. Or are you 5? You got to keep up with your emails today. Which one are you?
Gwen, I'm seeing a lot of 3s. I mean, Janelle is a 1 on it, and there's a few 4s. There's like a 5+. Wow. Okay.
It's okay, you guys. Take as much as you can, and we hope that you will enjoy our presentation and learn from our experience.
Our goal for today is to share our journey with all of you. And by the end of this presentation, we hope that you will have a better understanding of the importance of creating systems in place, and also learning how we were able to redesign inclusive classrooms in middle school through co-teaching. And most importantly, learn from the mistakes or roadblocks that we encountered along the way. On this slide, you can see a blueprint. This has been a guiding force in creating a system and
Sounds like we lost Maya's internet. Gwen, can you still hear me?
I can hear you. Did we just lose Mai?
I think we lost mine.
All right. I'm hoping that she'll be able to join us shortly.
Let me
All right.
let her know that she's frozen.
Okay. Can you let her know that she's frozen? I'm sure she doesn't know. I hope she knows that she's frozen.
Yes, she does. She's trying to rejoin. Yeah, she had a power interruption. Of course, we have a virtual pause. So for those that are a 5 at the moment, I wonder what it is that you can do in this next minute or so while Maya is trying to join us to get yourself uplifted, take a little stretch break, or grab a glass of water as Maya is trying to rejoin. Here she is. Oh, we just have to unmute you, Maya. There you are.
yes. I don't know what happened. I kept talking and then everybody froze.
I knew
So-
I have to say you were frozen in a very beautiful position.
Oh, that's actually good. Thank you. All right. I think I'm just going to go back, and I believe I left off. I don't know where I left off. Gwen, maybe you can fill me in.
You know what?
You were
just barely starting this slide. So
yes.
Okay. So that's great. So this chart here, right in front of you, is our blueprint. This has been our guiding force in creating a system in place. And I would just like to let everyone know that Janelle and Juliet and the rest of the Supporting Inclusive Practices team, they have been an instrumental piece in our journey. And with their help, we were able to get where we are now. And I don't know what will happen if they're not without their support. So I want us to focus on the first 3 columns. The first one is envisioning. Dream big and have a vision. This is where we started. We started envisioning. And as a former special education teacher, I have seen the inequalities that our students with special needs are facing. The gap does not close, it continues to widen. And at one point, I dreamt of having a classroom where my students with IEPs will be in a general education setting with their typical peers all day, with the support from 2 amazing teachers, the general education teacher and the RSP teacher. And I can say that I started seeing that in reality. And so, of course, what we did with our vision is we shared it with our leadership team, both the district and site leaders. This is the time where we started building. We actually looked at the data, identified the gaps and the needs, and all the next steps. And of course, having a vision and a plan is nothing without action. So we put all those plans into action, and that's where you can see the 3rd column of implementation stage. And this is where we are right now. Our long-term plan is to ensure that we move on to the next step, scale up, and pay it forward.
Let's take a look at this picture. Can you guys relate to this chaos? This is the state of our special education department prior to us assuming this administrative position. And I bet you this is the state of all of our schools, right? During COVID, and I'm sure some of your schools may be, it's with the same state of chaos, even up to date. This particular slide doesn't capture all of the challenges that we went through right from the very start. Our district received so many compliance complaints that stemmed from 2017 and 18-19 school year. The complaints that you see on your screen were just complaints pertaining to our resource specialist program. And due to the numerous complaints, CDE placed our school districts under comprehensive review for special education, which also impacted our general education or district-wide data that placed our school district under differentiated assistance review. And I'm not too sure if we have some administrators or staff coming from the county, but our San Benito County of Education has been providing us with technical assistance to help us out of differentiated assistance. So with those compliance complaints, that also led to few litigations that are filed against our school district that resulted to some of our students being placed in a non-public school. And other factors that we had to take a look at was the previous district practice on increasing specialized academic instruction once the student moves from elementary to middle school. Like all of a sudden, our students were being pulled out of gen ed, language arts, and math core classes and being placed into what we call self-contained classes for RSP students. And I know these are just the challenges that we faced on this very screen, but however, I also want to emphasize the amazing efforts of our special education team, because in 1.5 school years, we were able to correct and complete all of the CDE complaints that led to CDEs releasing our school district from comprehensive review in less than 2 school years. So such Herculean task of fixing the broken system and also revamping a lot of our special education program led us to where we are right now in such a short period of time. But this was our reality. This is the reality that we faced that led to the foundation of our why, that help us set the stage for knowing why we do what we do. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Simon Sinek's Golden Circle of Why, which is a good representation of understanding our purpose to determine our hows and our whats. And finding out our why was very crucial in helping us shape our purpose and decision making. We build we pulled together what we call our co-teaching task force, which was composed of site administrators, general education teachers, SPED teachers, and staff, district staff, and also administrators. They put together this wonderful plan, a comprehensive review of co-teaching in our school district. And they came up with a lot of reasons, why do we have to do inclusion? So to sum up our why is to build an inclusive system for a better quality education for children and for changing mindset towards diversity.
Who here likes to ride in a roller coaster? And feel free to put it in the chat, yes or no. Yes, if you like to ride in a roller coaster, no. Let's see, I'll give you about 30 seconds. Tell us if you like to ride in a roller coaster or not. Don't be shy.
Well, for sure, I hate roller coasters.
And I share the same, Gwen. So I'll give about 10 more seconds to see who among you likes a roller coaster. Well, Heather says yes, and Janelle, it depends where the roller coaster is going. That's a good one. Okay, well, I personally don't like roller coaster because I'm afraid of heights. But little did I know that our co-teaching journey was more like a roller coaster ride. Since its inception in 2019, we've encountered ups and downs, But through it all, it helped us redesign teaching to build inclusive classrooms in middle schools. Our partnership with SIP started in 2019. And it was not originally co-teaching. It started on a series of Universal Design Learning, or UDL, workshops for site leaders and selected teachers, which was spearheaded by our Educational Services Department. And with a goal to have both Educational Services and Special Education Department be more inclusive and collaborative to better serve the needs of all their students, we got involved in the planning and implementation process. And that's when we started looking at data, and based on the data, we've identified the needs. Hey, we need to start at the middle school because that's where there's gaps and that's where the needs are. So in February of 2020, February 2020, with SIP, district and site leaders, we started our co-teaching journey. We looked at the CDE and district data that we had, again, identified gaps and needs and next steps. And at that time, we were like, we had so much plans, so much ideas, it was like blowing up. But then we had to pause and really identify and prioritize what our goals are. And we ended up with 3 measurable goals for the year and attach action steps with it. The most important piece during that planning stages was actually involving our site leaders. And this is the part in the roller coaster when you feel elated and excited, right? It's like, oh my goodness, we're gonna start something new. And then school year 2020-2021 happened. And who would have thought that we will start this school year virtually? What do you think? What do you think happened? This is where we felt the sudden roller coaster drop. I told Gwen at that time, I'm like scared and worried. I don't think this is gonna work. We haven't had co-teaching and co-teaching virtually. I don't think this is gonna work. And we even talked to our superintendent at that time. But then we also stepped back and reminded ourselves with our why. And one of the things too that I remember Gwen telling us at that time was, if not now, then when? So we shifted our mindset and pushed forward. And we also were okay that, you know what, maybe along the way, we're going to make some changes and we are going to pivot, and that is okay. And so year 1 last year started with planning and implementation. It included monthly workshops led by SIP, and also continuous check-in and ongoing training for our site leaders and staff. Unfortunately, like the roller coaster ride, there's steep inclines, sharp curves, right? That's when we faced, how many grievances, Gwen? Is it 2 or 3 or 3 or 4? Maybe 3 to 4 grievances.
I think 4 total.
4 total, because the first year we had 3 grievances, and then this year we had 1. And that really discouraged us, because it put us into a very difficult situation. And we also encountered numerous personality clashes between co-teachers, general education teachers versus RSP teachers, or teachers versus site administrators. So these were the times when we wanted the roller coaster ride to stop, but we kept going and learned from the challenges that we encountered along the way. The creation of the Co-Teaching Task Force Committee in March, which Gwen alluded, led to significant progress on how we are going to move forward. The team was composed of district leaders, site leaders, general education teachers, and RSP teachers. March to May of 2021 were critical moments in our co-teaching journey. That was the time when the task force met several times and developed a 14-page recommendation report, which we also utilized as a draft handbook. And our special education leadership team met with individual school sites to really work on the plans for next year and intentionally involve ourselves with master scheduling. There were a lot of conversations on staffing or student selection to prevent the same issues we had before. And fast forward to year 2, and this is this school year. Planning is still definitely in the picture, but we are excited to where this will take off from here.
Wow, Mai, you summarized our journey in less than 10 minutes, but thank you for taking us to that wild ride. It was quite a journey. It was quite a ride for all of us, but it's really amazing to have a team of people who would hold your hands from start all the way to the very end. So let's take a look at this slide. Can you let us know, like, what do you notice between the 2 school years? Feel free to use your chat. Tell us what you notice, what you wonder. Like, what's the difference between the 2? I'm sure you noticed that our schools decreased from 7 to 5 the following school year, right? So one of the major realization that we had in our first year of implementation is that inclusion is a change in mindset. And when change involves such a paradigm shift, a district-wide approach is like how we did it on our first year of implementation. Top-down approach wasn't highly effective for our school district. So we decided to take the grassroots approach the following school year. And that is by focusing on the schools with solid commitment when it comes to inclusion, also stable staffing. That's why you see the decrease in our school from 7 to 5. So we had to temporarily, have this separation in terms of co-teaching with the other schools for now. So this school year, we continued with 5 schools who have strong commitment and solid teams. And if you also notice, we increased our grade level. We added 7th grade. And this time we gave our teachers an opportunity to teach either or both English language arts and math. This school year 2 is that we are focusing on co-assessing and strengthening our co-planning and co-teaching. We're also looking into building capacity at the site level, which is something that we want to achieve this year so that our co-teachers can obtain support not only at the district, but also within their school site. So this is a good representation of our service delivery comparison, which is before and after our co-teaching implementation. I think we mentioned in the beginning that in the past, our district practice was to place all of our incoming middle school students in what we call quote unquote self-contained class for RSP. So elementary, they were all in general education classes for language arts and math. When they moved to middle school, we placed them in our self-contained class for middle school language arts and math. And that was the practice before we implemented our co-teaching. When we started doing co-teaching in 2020 and up to date, our LRE increased to 100%. And now all of our students in 6th and 7th grades are all now in their general education classes, accessing the full general education curriculum with typically developing peers for language arts and math. However, we still continued our 8th grade traditional, what we call traditional self-contained class in our 8th grade RSP for math and language arts. So you could see like a huge shift in terms of access once we started implementing co-teaching.
On this slide, you can see our co-teaching logic model. So we have this grand plan, right? And what do you do when you have a grand plan? Do you just keep it to yourself or share it? We share it.
Right? We have to communicate.
Yes. And so we have to communicate our grand plan to our stakeholders, hence the development of our logic model. This model helps communicate our initiative to people within our district and outside in a concise and compelling way. So this model is divided into 5 categories, and our journey from the very start and where we want to go is documented in here. The first column is resources. And this is, I want to just highlight that one of my favorite thing in the resource is actually our dedicated Padlet, which SIP created for all of Hollister School District staff to access at any time to, review or refer to. And on the second column is activities. So building capacity at the site level by providing ongoing support to teachers through check-in, coaching, or mentoring is one of our major activities this year. We want to build capacities. We want our site leaders to take ownership of co-teaching. And the third column is evidence, of course. We need to have data, right? Who doesn't like data? So under evidence for this year, we obtained pre-teacher survey data at the beginning of the year, as well as a support schedule for site leaders and teams. We also developed a check-in coaching / mentoring log to promote communication and ensure accountability. We broke down the outcomes. As you can see, there's two outcomes, the fourth and the fifth column, into short-term outcomes, which is achievable within this school year, and also the long-term outcomes that we want to achieve within 3 to 5 years. Our co-teaching task force committee identified 7 critical factors to a successful co-teaching journey. And this is based on the different research that they did, as well as all the experiences that they actually encountered in the past 2 years. So what we're going to do is go over each critical factor and provide practical tips for district and site leaders and also teachers. So our critical factor number 1 is pre-planning. This is really, really important. Without a solid foundation, you'll have trouble creating anything of value. And as a district or site leader, we really encourage you to be involved and intentional in the master scheduling process. I mean, master scheduling in middle school is a beast. So you need to be there in the arena. And for teachers, we invite you and encourage you to provide your input and feedback in that master scheduling and also that common prep time. That is very, very important. Critical factor number 2 is scheduling and selecting teachers. Teacher attitude and mindset, they are key to a successful co-teaching process. And where do we start? Of course, for our district, if we have any HR staff here, it is really important to start including inclusion questions during the interview process. And if you are a co-teacher here, it is best to start building and nurturing relationship with your co-teacher. One of the things that we recommend is that for co-teachers is to start completing the SHARE worksheet. SHARE stands for sharing hopes, attitudes, responsibilities, and expectations. It is a tool developed by one of our co-teaching gurus, Wendy Morosky. And this piece of information or tool is critical for teachers to set a well-built co-teaching foundation. So what we did with our staff is that some of them actually completed the SHARE worksheet individually and then came together and then talked about it. Some staff actually did it both and then discussed what their expectations will be. Gwen will be discussing critical factors number 3 and 4.
Thank you, Mai. Well, for critical factor number 3, and that is selecting and scheduling students. For district or site administrators, we really need to be extremely cautious in making sure that our co-teaching classes will not end up as an SDC or a special education class. So we really need to take a look at the dynamics of the class. How many students are with IEPs? How many students are English learners? And how many of the rest of the students would fall under what we call those most vulnerable population, right? According to the recommendation that we got from multiple researches, it is recommended for elementary co-teaching class to have at least 25% or less, or 30% or less in middle school and high school. And we follow this percentage very much in creating those co-teaching classes. For our teachers, it's very important that we get input from our teachers, that our teachers provide the recommendation in terms of which students shouldn't be together, which students should be separated or placed in a different co-teaching class. And of course, taking a look at the needs of the students as stated in their IEP, and also providing input in terms of the overall class composition. See, the other critical factor is the common planning time, which for me, based on my experience working with our teachers and our site administrators, co-planning is both the most important and the most difficult component of co-teaching. I would say that based on our experience. And this is where we typically see that breakdown in relationships and communication when co-teachers do not have a common planning time, or when they do not plan at all. So as site leaders, it is very important to ensure that co-teachers' planning time is sacred. And we also have, I would say, not really an obligation, but we need to make sure that we're intentional in checking in on our staff, just to ensure if they are following their common planning time that's set aside for them, or if they are having planning time at all, even after school. So when we say about co-teaching, I know that we compare it a lot to a marriage, right? And it's definitely important for our teachers to get along and build rapport. However, what Maya and I encountered this school year is that oftentimes our planning sessions became a venting session instead of a shared session. And there were numerous times that we had to call in Mai to intervene. And I think, Mai, correct me if I'm wrong, like your first few months was really spent on facilitating those co-planning time, to make sure that they are
Estuvieron planeando y
and also to make sure that they are following whatever it is that's indicated in our co-planning agenda form. Do you want to talk a little bit about that form, Mai?
Yes, I mean, I love that, Gwen. Yes, I felt like I was in ADR during those first few months, because we facilitated a lot of those really hard conversations, emotional conversations, because the common planning time became a venting session. And you know what? It's okay to vent. I usually tell Gwen, and not just Gwen, but also the team, set aside 5 minutes of your time to vent, because you need to do that in order to move forward with what you need to do. But don't spend 30 minutes or the entire time venting, right?
Right, make it productive. And one suggestion too that you will hear from our co-teachers at the later part of this presentation is that you need to set time to get to know your teachers outside work, right? Get to know them personally, and that would really help you in terms of relationships.
Critical factor number 5 is instructional considerations. This is where our instructional leadership comes alive. If you are a district or site leader listening, it is important that we ensure that discussion focuses on students, analyzing data and strategies to improve instruction. We are also, as district and site leaders, responsible in ensuring that our teachers has the necessary resources and materials that they need. And for our teachers out there, we would like to highlight the importance of using evidence-based practices or approaches to instruction, and constantly reflecting on those and making adjustments when necessary. I mean, I love this particular, during my co-teaching walkthrough, I love this particular team wherein they said, oh my gosh, that's not part of our plan. That's in the middle of them teaching, because they had to make adjustments for the betterment of their students. Critical factor number 6 is assessment. And co-teaching assessment comes into 2 parts. First is assessing the students. We'll let all our teachers handle that. And the second part is assessing the co-teaching process. Teachers, we need support from their leadership in assessing the co-teaching process, to reflect on their progress and what is going on. site leaders or district leaders, you need to offer feedback on teaching styles, content, and activities, and other important information to improve the co-teaching practices. And this is something that the Hollister School District hasn't fully embarked on yet, but this is something that really we would like to see more of next school year. And for teachers out there, it is important to have clear expectations on the roles and responsibilities in the assessment process. Equally important is to spend time to reflect on your individual and combined assessment practices. And the last critical factor is actually administrative support. One of the things that helped me as a leader this year is soliciting ideas and feedback. And just full disclosure, there were times I hated those feedback because it did not align to what I wanted, but it allowed me to look at things from a different perspective and re-examine my intention. And this is not just for site leaders, but I think for everyone. And this year, one of the things that we are proud of was we provided our teachers with the option on how to receive support, which included check-in, coaching, or mentoring, just like our UDL strategies, providing options to our students. And so we did that to our teachers. Now, I would like for one of our principal, Diana Herbs, she's the principal at Mays Middle School, to share a little bit about how co-teaching made an impact at her school site during the pandemic and now. Let's hear it from her.
Co-teaching has impacted Mays Middle School in a very positive way. Our co-teachers plan together, work really well together. They support all of their students, and it has changed the culture in a positive way because other teachers are starting to ask, how can I get involved? How can I be a co-teacher? And the nice thing about co-teaching here is you can walk into the classroom and you won't know who the special ed teacher is and who the general ed teacher is. They work really, really well together, and it's definitely a team effort.
Well, it is definitely a team effort in co-teaching. I just want to share that when we talk about redesigning, it's difficult and it doesn't happen overnight, right? And also it involves a lot of major changes. So when you initiate a change, expect pushback, expect disappointment, but also expect wins. I'm just going to be talking about challenges, but Mai will come back and talk about our co-teaching wins in a bit. But when we started co-teaching, there was no district policy on inclusion practices. And when it comes to commitment from our leaders, they're very inconsistent. But we pushed through with co-teaching to take place at all school sites because we believe that it will benefit not just our students with special needs, but all of our students. And we pushed through the implementation of co-teaching during the pandemic through a virtual learning platform. One of the predictors of the success of co-teaching is the leadership support from the very top, all the way from the board members to the superintendent, all the way down to your site level administrative team. And commitment of leaders to this cause should be 100%. It should be all out. We experienced that leaders with partial or no commitment at all negatively impacted the staff and the overall school culture when it comes to inclusion. And that was one of the major challenges that we dealt on our first year of implementation. The other one is lack of common planning time and increase in workload, which also prompted a lot of our union members to complain about co-teaching in general. And I recall, those numerous meetings that we had with our union members, which also opened our eyes with the situation that they were in, especially during distance learning. So it's very important that we involve every stakeholders in the planning and development, rebuilding, and implementation of this wonderful co-teaching initiative. The other one too is it, just like what I mentioned, it was a struggle for teachers to teach virtually, to co-teach virtually, but also it's a struggle for them to build relationship from a distance. There are a lot of dramas, personality clashes between teaching staff and the site administrators, and even us at the district level. And just like what we mentioned time and time again about co-teaching being a marriage, right? It's sometimes arranged, it's love at first sight, right? But unfortunately, some relationships end in separation or divorce, just like what we did with the other two schools. We had to temporarily separate from them in terms of co-teaching. And this was the case for those teams or those school sites who failed to commit to the critical factors of co-teaching. When it comes to the critical factors, they're very important, especially in building a strong foundation. And these are the three main supports that we provided during the pandemic, and we continue to provide up to this date. It's very important for that monthly workshops with SIP that provided technical assistance to our team members. And this monthly technical assistance guided all of us in planning intentionally when it comes to from the planning all the way to instruction and even the assessment during distance learning. Just like what Mai mentioned, SIP created this dedicated online resource through our HSD co-teaching Padlet, in which all of our staff members can access online and even access previous presentation slides, articles and videos that they could review time and time again. And lastly, the SPED district leadership and the SIP and our SIP team, we met a lot of times, especially during the inception of this co-teaching, even up to like 1 to 3 times a month. Like, we were constantly communicating with each other. SPED district leadership met with site administrators on a monthly basis as well. And I just want to emphasize the importance of that regular collaborative meeting among school site team members, which provided an avenue for our teachers and our site administrators to problem solve concerns at the site level. We want to share this video from one of our amazing co-teaching teams. And this video highlights the importance of relationship, that it's not just having a relationship at work, but also establishing relationship outside work. And this made their partnership even stronger. So let's spend a few minutes watching what they have to say about co-teaching.
Yeah, how did we do it? I think a lot of our time is spent celebrating each other, whether it's at school or in our personal lives. We really, last year, Layla and I really got to know each other well, not only because it was a pandemic and we were working from home, but we spent a lot of our time talking to each other about our students, but not just about our students. We would talk about our home lives and getting to know each other outside of school. So I think that really helped. And then with Christine coming in this year, we just really brought her in and made her part of the pack, I guess you would say.
Yeah, initially I had my doubts. I was scared coming into, something that is new. I've been teaching my 15 years of teaching, and I'm basically all by myself as an RSP teacher. I do collaborate with gen ed teachers, but not the way that I collaborate with my co-teachers. So that's one thing that I learned. And
yeah, and then they brought me in this year with open arms and just accepted me as another teacher. And it was nice to have the two to reflect on, because I'm not used to that. And I'm not used to teaching 7th grade. So to have both of them to bounce ideas off of, and they support me and I support them with whatever we need, no matter what it is.
I think you made a good point. Not being used to 7th grade. Last year was my first year teaching, and I wasn't used to middle school either. So I'm in 6th grade. Layla's never been in middle school. So we're all kind of navigating this new grade and age of students together, and really working off of each other and having different perspectives and different viewpoints on all of it.
And we've become friends outside of it too, as well. And I think that really builds on our rapport with one another. We understand family relationships, we understand outside life and that's what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
I just love that team. I mean, they are the team that actually beg us not to divorce them. But let's look at this slide about co-teaching wins, #BetterTogether. Forging long-lasting relationship is just one of the co-teaching wins that our teachers experience, just like what you watch and heard from our amazing co-teachers. When we did a mid-survey last year, and at the end of the year, leaders and teachers share the positive impact of co-teaching personally and professionally to them. One of the best things that I heard from a teacher is when a few of her students came up to her and said, "You know what, Mrs. So-and-so, this is the first time that I felt I belong, that I actually was able to be with my peers the entire day without being pulled out, that I can actually utilize the same materials and do the same worksheets as the rest of my classmates." And that brought a lot of joy and of course tears to that teacher. And this year too, two teachers shared with us that for the first time in their teaching life, the entire language arts class, they did not have any Fs. And so our goal is to look at our assessment data for this year. So those are just a few of the co-teaching wins. Yes, it was indeed a journey, but we looked at all those co-teaching wins and how it made a huge difference and impact our students. And that inspires us to keep moving forward. So let's take a moment in listening to one of the parents' perspective on the impact of co-teaching in her son's life. Janina Stoya is one of our principals at Lad Lane Elementary School, and it's a K-8 middle school, and one of her classes is actually a co-taught class. So let's hear it from Janine.
So I've been fortunate enough to have a student got to participate, my son, in the co-teaching here at Lad Lane, and he has become really confident in his schoolwork and his reading in particular. In years past, he would never volunteer to read to the class or read out loud because I think he felt that his reading wasn't adequate. But having the support of the two teachers in the class, he's become way more confident. He actually loves having the support in the class when he needs it versus being pulled out later in the day to go over material. So I've been fortunate
Next slide. So we recognize that this is just the beginning. On this slide, you can see all the next steps that our district is actually taking on. The first one is continuing those leadership meetings with SIP and providing continuous choice of teacher support, going on offering ongoing workshops, observing other co-taught classrooms, and continuous support from SIP.
So we have this wonderful resources on co-teaching. It is linked to our presentation, and I believe that Janelle also included the link in the Google chat. Is that correct, Janelle?
I included the link to this presentation, yes, so
Perfect.
they can access it through the presentation. I will re-add it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. So in closing, I just want to emphasize the importance of your vision for our students with special needs. I know Mai shared with us how co-teaching started with envisioning before we even started redesigning and building an inclusive system for all of our students. Your vision matters, but you need to be stubborn with your vision and be stubborn with your goals. But at the same time, be flexible with your plans and be flexible with our staff. there's just so much work to be done for our students. So let us continue to improve our work, share our work, and just like what our co-teachers shared with us, we need to continue to celebrate those small wins and those huge successes, right? Because that will help us build and continue the momentum in supporting all of our students, not just students with special needs. And we are hoping that we will be able to see one of you in the next SIP conference as the inclusion presenters. So with that, we're going to be spending the last few minutes in answering questions that you may have for both me and Mai.
We hope that we see an added group of folks who are in this session as attendees next year as presenters as well. And Gwen and Mai, thank you so much. It has been an honor to hear from all of you, but just really your authentic explanation of your journey and even the barriers along the way. So I've collected a bunch of questions for you, and I'm going to start from the top. One of the first questions that came in was, how do you deal with personality clashes between co-teachers or between co-teaching styles?
I can answer that. So the first few months, I mean, there's a lot, of course, that we don't want to do co-teaching, or we don't want this partner. There was a lot of that. And, oh, this partner is not a good partner or close-minded. We really had to sit down with them and had honest and open conversations individually and as a team. And we involved the site leader. For some of them, we had to do an empathy interview, which Janelle really helped me do that. It was a little bit uncomfortable doing it at first, but that really helped me, and that really helped the other person get to the root of things, really understanding where they were coming from and coming together to brainstorm solutions to move forward. And yes, there were times that they literally, like at first, I mean, I can just imagine this meeting with these two teachers. They were literally yelling at each other and crying. And myself and the site principal were like, oh my goodness, what do we do? But you know what? Having that empathy, reassuring them, acknowledging what they're feeling, and again, moving past that, okay, let's come up with a plan to move forward. I think that's the most important thing there.
Yeah, getting to the root of that problem, really. And it's hard. It's like co-parenting, coming together as co-teachers. So another question, do you, and you might have already answered this earlier, but do you plan on taking your model and continue to expand it in high school?
I can answer that question, Janelle. Well, our high school school district, it's a different school district from us. That's San Benito High School District. They have been implementing co-teaching for almost like 7 or 8 years now. And that is why we decided as a school district who's running our middle schools to implement co-teaching to ensure that our students will have continuity when they go to the high school. But we do have plans, Janelle, of adding 8th grade for next school year.
Yeah. And I love how, I mean, in our initial conversations, I remember, I mean, there's this desire to get started and go big and go broad. And some of our initial conversations were start small and learn and practice and grow. And that's what you all have truly done. So like you said earlier in the presentation, that redesign does not happen overnight. It really requires systematic planning and, like I said, learning and practice. Because every year you will learn something new and you'll be able to be even that much more proactive for the future. So another question was about which subjects in your district are currently being co-taught.
I can answer that. So right now we have language arts and math for 6th grade and 7th grade. Yes, we hope like high school is a separate district. So I just want to emphasize that. But when we visited there, they have all content areas. And of course, that entails a lot of logistical planning. But for now, it's language arts and math.
Great. Another question was about credentialing, and this, it sounds like it was directed just to you specifically. I think Maya, you were presenting at the time, but do you have a single subject credential as well as a special education credential?
So is it more for myself or for the co-teacher?
It was specific
not?
to you. It says you, but
Okay.
I don't know if the question was
All
more
right.
general.
Well, I will probably
about-
answer both.
Okay.
So specifically for me, I have a special education credential, but for our co-teachers, all of our RSP teachers that are participating in co-teaching right now, they have special education credential. And for general education teachers, they either have single subject or multiple subject.
And I was a co-teacher myself. I am dually credentialed and I taught in middle school, but you do not have to be dually credentialed in order to co-teach. Really, you just want to ensure that you have both your general and special education teachers appropriately credentialed. I hope that answers the question. Let's see. I'm just coming through to make sure I didn't miss any. It looks
There's
like
two things. Janelle, the co-teaching FAQ and co-teaching reference guide, that's actually SIP resources. Would you be able to share that out too?
Yes, I will actually just go ahead and post the virtual learning page of our website has that. It actually has almost similar to the Padlet that Mai and Gwen were referencing. We have a free Padlet. We also have 3 recorded web modules specific to co-teaching. On this Padlet, you'll also find those reference documents that Maya was just talking about. So I'm dropping a link to our virtual learning community here in the chat. And like I said, you can find our 3 recorded web modules where you learn the basics of co-teaching. This is actually where we started with this group. So just the very basics about co-teaching, and then, like I said, the Padlet of resources along with the reference guide. Any other questions that we
I
missed?
see some in the Q&A, the slides embedded. So Janelle dropped that link, and then the co-teaching reference guide. And can you elaborate on an empathy interview? I mean, Janelle actually taught me how to do that, but the questions really is based on different scenarios. It's based on what you need, your needs are. Yes.
Escenarios.
All right.
Oh, I think, yeah. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay.
Vamos a ver.
Do you want to add on to that, Janelle?
¿Añadir algo más?
Oh, it sounds like we can hear one of our interpreters.
Yes, we can hear the
Estamos siguiendo
Spanish
uno de nuestros
translation.
intérpretes. Sí, parece que sí.
So hold on, let me get that fixed.
Vamos a tratar de arreglar eso.
Oops.
And I just
Sorry.
want to share that Mai is highly trained in dispute resolution. So we were able to share and use those dispute resolution strategies in all our in the sessions that we have with the teachers, most especially Mai. She's really good in acting as a mediator during conflict resolution meeting.
So to elaborate really quickly, we have about 2 more minutes on empathy interviews too. It's really just, it's a set of interview questions where you are attentively listening and you're really asking open-ended questions where you're trying to learn more about a person's experience. So you're not commenting back, you're just truly empathically listening. And so you start with basic questions like, tell me about your experience with co-teaching. What have been some of the barriers that you have felt or you've seen or you have experienced in this situation or as a co-teacher this year? Or what are some of the highlights or some wins that you've experienced? So you really like starting with those basics, and then you could even ask them, how does it make you feel when you are co-teaching? Or tell me about one positive experience or one negative? What stands out to you the most? So that you're really trying to capture what the user experience is. And that's what really Maya and Gwen were aiming for, was getting in the hearts and the minds of their teachers and trying to really get the user experience. So one other last question was, how do we get SIP help for our district? And Hollister is one of our 50 grantees. Grantees are assigned to us by and determined by California Department of Education. So if your district is not currently a grantee, please head over to our website and check out all of the resources we have, because we do have free events to anyone in the state of California where that might be a really good place for your district to start. So with that, I'm going to close this session. Gwen and Mai, we still have so many questions coming in, and that's just because you all are incredible and a wealth of resource and knowledge. So you can reach out to any one of us for more information about co-teaching and for additional support. We'd be happy to thought partner with you. Gwen and Mai's information is on the screen, and then you can contact me through SIP Connect or through our website. With that, we are going to jet over to our last session, which is a panel discussion with an entire incredible IEP team. So you do not want to miss it. Thank you so much, Gwen, Mai, and all of our attendees for being here today. We appreciate you immensely.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.